leaders like Vince Lombardi and extraordinary leadership. I've always been a real big fan of strong leadership. And when I was 29 years old, I got dragged into a room in Orlando, a lot smaller than this one. A lot smaller room than this one with about 18 people in it. And this guy walked in and all but hit me over the head with a 2x4 and dragged me into his cave. And I've been in the cave ever since. Pretty much the most passionate and the highest level of conviction of any leader I've known in any industry, and someone who I've admired for now going on 13 years since I first met him. I would like to reflect back on a brief conversation we had yesterday about inventors and the fact that people like the Wright brothers that invented the plane didn't see commercial airline take off for 20, 30 years after that invention. The average person was too afraid to get on that plane, right? And I reflected yesterday about my grandmother who was scared to death of a microwave. The first time we brought a microwave into our home, she thought it was going to give us all 3 eyeballs across our forehead or something. But inventions are powerful, powerful things. And I just checked with Victor in the back. He interviewed a guy, the #1 RE/MAX agent in Palm Beach County, over 200 transactions a year. We just took over 145 agent Keller Williams shop in Fort Myers, Florida. We just took over a RE/MAX shop in Estero, Bonita. The next decade is ours is a growing slogan around here because the power of this invention has yet to be seen by the average person in this industry. What this is doing across the country is absolutely phenomenal. And I want to personally thank Mr. Morris because what he's done for my family and the families of many, many people in this room is absolutely extraordinary. The invention of single level residuals has been phenomenal. But my heroes have always been cowboys. Here's my favorite one, Mr. Steve Morris.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Must be Florida. Has to be Florida. Yes, sir. I can feel you. Thanks for being here. I want to have a little chat about you. I want to talk about us. And I want to talk about where we're going, what it's all about. And I think really, ultimately as an individual or as a group, it's very important to stake your claim. Stake your claim. So I'm going to stake it right here now. Exit owns the next decade. We own it. We own it. And I say that with absolute conviction because I'm surrounded with people like you, whereby you've learned how to put your heart, mind, and soul in your business. And you're learning how to be good to each other, and you're learning how to work harmoniously and productively with each other. And it's a wonderful thing to see. You know, single level residuals will ultimately revolutionize the industry. There's no question about that. But what it's really ultimately all about is getting the most and the best out of everybody that's part of it. How much good we can do out there. So when we stake our claim, I've got to take this position. I think there's some unfinished business. I think there's unfinished business in your life. I think there's unfinished business where we're going, what we're all about. And I think we should maybe take a look at some of this stuff. So I'm going to expose a little bit of unfinished business here today. I deal with, and anybody who knows me well knows that I deal with the one computer that I feel is ultimately most important, and that's the one that all of us have inside of us. This wonderful mind system that's inside of each and every one of us. And I deal with it every day. I spend a lot of time with it. I watch everyone in the real world, in the real estate world, with little computers, and they're learning how to manipulate them and learning how to utilize them and learning how to become more efficient as a result of them, and it enthralls them. And when we listen to people like Jeff Lobb get up and talk about those computers, it's marvelous to hear an expert talk. I love to watch an expert work, and I love to hear somebody that really knows that they know talk and express themselves in such an understandable way that it totally influences everybody that's in the audience. Because our life is really ultimately calibrated with regard to the audience that we attract. You've got a magnetic personality. You have a following. With the leaders, we talked to the brokers yesterday. You know, the real position is that if you call yourself a leader but nobody's following you, you're just out for a walk. What is that? What is that? Well, you know, when I'm talking to salespeople, you've got a following. You've got a clientele. You've got customers. And a customer is somebody you deal with once. A client is somebody you deal with every time. What I want to know is whether or not you're ultimately focused on dealing with them every time. Are you making those kind of impressions with them? If they were good enough to deal with once, they're good enough to deal with every time. Isn't that right? So they should be your client. Don't start referring to somebody you've dealt with once as your client. They're not. You haven't earned the right yet. They're not your client really until you've dealt with them at least a second time, and then it's a perpetual thing after that. Have you made up your mind that you're going to deal with them every time? Because guess what? Your reputation is everything. It's everything. This corporation's reputation is everything. Your individual reputation is everything. And I hope you stand behind that and that it becomes one of those rules of your life, because I think you are ultimately what you believe yourself to be. And you're a product of your beliefs. You're a product of those convictions. And a belief is just an idea that you've allowed to hang around, right? You allow it to be part of you, part of your internal computer system, where you accept that idea as of some value to you, that you would utilize it for the rest of your entire life to get the most and the best out of yourself as a result of what? Getting the most and the best out of the other guy. And as we get to know ourselves better, and that's perhaps the mission. You know, real estate is just the product. The business is people. It's always people. It's always been people. It always will be people. So you have to look at yourself from that standpoint of unfinished business and say, how good am I at dealing effectively with others? And am I getting better? Because I think it's all about progression. It's about progressiveness. It's about falling in love with the idea of making progress. I want to be just a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. I want to be aiming in that direction to progressively achieve all of my objectives. I want to build my life in a crescendo. You know, we start small. We always do that at head office. We start small. It doesn't matter what we do. We start at the low end. Don't jump in with both boots on. Start at the low end, start small, and then build it in a crescendo over a distance of time. And what is the definition of time? Well, it's initiation and finalization, isn't it? Everything is. Getting it started, getting it finished. Isn't that what the real estate business is all about? It's all about cause and effect, isn't it? And the distance of time between cause and effect is time. Now, time can be the great frustrator, can't it? When you're called on to wait because the closing's not going to take place on Tuesday, it's not going to take place until next Friday, there's a sense of frustration with that, which is the basis of all stress, because it's caused from incompleted actions. Our business is full of incompleted actions. So if there was ever a place where people would feel and express stress, it's right here. Because not everything happens exactly as you want it to happen, not when you want it to happen. And a lot of us are impetuous by nature. Put up your hand if you're impetuous by nature. You want it done when? Yesterday. Yeah, isn't it true? You've got this sense of drive and determination in the fact that you want to deal with this business, deal with people, get out there and sell product, but you want stuff done yesterday. And sometimes you pick on yourself, and sometimes you push yourself around. Now, I'm going to take the position that everything in the universe grows better, goes better as a result of effective reinforcement. Now, notice I didn't say force. Force never works. The only thing that works in the universe is reinforce. So ask yourself this question from an unfinished business standpoint: how well reinforced am I? Do I do anything on a daily basis to reinforce my position, to reinforce who I am, to reinforce my family structure, to reinforce how I feel about what I'm doing? What's my sense of reinforcement? Now look at it for a minute. If you stake your claim with regard to who you are, that means you're going to live an affirmative lifestyle. You affirm who you are. You affirm what you stand for. You put a line in the sand and say, that's who I am. Well, the big question at the end of the week, the end of the month, at the end of your life is, who am I and what am I doing? Who am I and what am I doing? And every once in a while, you got to look in the rearview mirror. Have a good look. It doesn't always turn out exactly the way you wanted it to turn out. So you've got to be in a constant state of refinement. Next time I do this, it's going to be a little bit better. So whenever you do something and it doesn't turn out just exactly right, you ask yourself two questions. What did I do right? What would I change the next time? Not, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Because guess what? You probably did a lot of things right. You probably did. You should be proud of yourself with regard to that. Absolutely, totally the best. They go arm in arm, and they actually help each other clean up the mess, and they build it bigger and stronger than it ever was before. They're really not, we've got to mature into this. We're not as good as we could be from an unfinished business standpoint when times are great. Because there is a tendency, here, there, and everywhere, to reach into the cookie jar, and everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar. And then before you know it, because everybody wants a piece of the action, everything explodes in our face, it turns into a frenzy, and all of a sudden what we had going for us ends up in a rhythm that goes the other way, and then the corners of your mouth is down here, and you're dragging your bag. Now, are we improving? Yes, we are. We're getting smarter. Guess what? We're never going to have to go through a calamity like this ever again. Nobody's going to tamper with mortgages ever again. We've learned this lesson really, really severely. And we're never going to see interest rates go to 22 and a quarter like they did in 1981. I was managing offices at that time. In fact, I was managing managers at that time. We're never going to see 22 and a quarter ever again. When we muck it up really badly, we muck it up pretty badly. The pain is so extreme, we're never going to return to the scene of the crime. So the storm has passed by, and I want you to all know that. The storm has passed by. We went into shock for a period of time there. And now we got to clean up the mess, and there's some damaged goods, and there's no question about that. But we got to get back into momentum. So what is this year all about? What's 2011 all about? It's a new decade. As they say in hockey, new puck, new game.